Solomon, and today I've got a special guest in Andrew Gray from the Man Show. A lot of you might have seen him on social media. He's all over social media at the moment. Love his content. And firstly, I'd like to introduce you, Andrew, and secondly, just thank you for what you're doing out there for men and getting a lot of good content out there, starting a lot of conversations. And thank you for coming on the show. And can't wait to get into it with you and talk about all things about men's issues currently in 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Graham, and I'm looking forward to our chat today.
No worries. Now, the first thing I want to ask for the people that haven't seen you or don't know you is how did you, obviously end up in the Man Show and what was the history behind it and what sort of impact have you what purpose for yourself is driving you to do this
Sure.
to get men's issues out there in the public?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the backstory in short is that I went through a bit of a career pivot about 3 to 4 years ago, which was a good one. It was by my own design, and I sort of orchestrated the whole change of career. And at that moment, I knew that I wanted to get into the content creation space. I knew that my previous almost 25 years in not-for-profit leadership, helping people, anything from coaching to developing leaders to counseling situations, problem solving. I developed this really broad knowledge base, essentially on how to help people to do better with their life. And so I thought this is my opportunity to combine that with some communication platforms, increase the reach, scale things up. And that started my foray into newsletters, social media, and YouTube channel particularly. But I started in a far more broad way, doing stuff around, leadership and healthy mindset and different things like this, which was fine. But after a period of time, I really felt impressed to hone in a little more on a more specific target audience, and that being men of all ages. But what I'm finding is that particularly middle-aged men are resonating with my content. And since then, I'm starting to see, quite a lot of feedback and input from guys who want someone to talk to. They want to be heard. They want their story out there. And so I've become increasingly passionate, having been already quite passionate about men's issues for, several decades, but increasingly passionate about the challenges that our men are facing, because they are on the rise. As we know, there's plenty of voices out there who want to speak against that and say, poor men, cry me a river. But we need to not get into that adversarial contest and just put our head down and focus on the fact that there are real issues for men. They need real resources and attention. And it's going to take more and more of us to stand up and speak up and say, we don't care whether people disagree. There are men out here who are struggling. They're burning out. They're tapping out. They're struggling with family breakdown and parental alienation and mental health issues, vocational disruption, financial pressure, you name it. The pressures have never been higher at the same time as the resources have never been lower. And so we've got to do more for men. And so I got really passionate, thinking I can do my bit. And hopefully we get enough guys collectively who are doing the same thing and say, yep, we're going to raise a bit of a standard here about the fact that this matters.
Yeah, totally agree. And like, in your observations so far, what do you think? What do you think's changed? Why do you think the statistics for a lot of things are rising? Like you said, men's mental health issues, suicide, all of this sort of stuff. What do you think's changed over, say, a 10, 20, 30-year period?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, I think there's multiple factors. And these are in no particular order, but I would identify 4 or 5 really obvious things. And we can start from the outside in. And the first one is the external or environmental circumstances and pressure. Cost of living is a massive issue for guys. Identity issues on how they're supposed to perform in their workplace. Struggling with who they're supposed to be as a man. What does masculinity mean in today's world? So there's a lot of external pressure being exerted on men. That's one big factor. Another factor is we're seeing, unfortunately and very sadly, an increasing percentage of marital breakdown, which as many men and women, but many men that we're talking about today have suffered through And that's extremely debilitating to go through that at any age. Often on the back of that, we're seeing another factor kick into gear, which is the parental alienation situation, which is a huge, not often spoken about, often enough issue. It's starting to rise in its awareness, but we've got to do a whole lot more on that front because, as you're aware, and many of the men who are connecting with me are aware, there are some horrendous, heinous things going on in the family court system that predominantly disadvantages and damages men. And by virtue of that, children are severely damaged through that process as well. So the parental alienation is a huge factor. As I mentioned before, mental health challenges are a huge factor. And probably the last one I'd add there is we are now as a society starting to observe the fruit of a multi-decade passage of increasing fatherlessness. And so whether people have a good, bad, or indifferent relationship with their biological father or don't know him at all, or whatever their particular story is in their own unique way, the stats are screaming at us that when you remove the father figure from the family home, the resulting impact on subsequent generations are not good at all. Crime rates, suicide rates, incarceration rates, poor grades at school, inability to maintain healthy relationships, addiction problems, you name it, every statistical column goes through the roof when you introduce fatherlessness. And there's, other sort of second tier factors that are compounding all of the ones that I just mentioned, chief of which is a very left-oriented mainstream media, or some people, including me, like to call it the lamestream media. And then we also have pockets of our political class who have an agenda that is oriented towards, at the low end, disadvantaging men, at the top end, an outright hatred of men. Combine all of that with what some people call the third wave of feminism. I call it metastasized feminism. It's gone mutated and rogue. There's a list of things, you just contemplate those, all piling in on our men. It's not surprising that guys are reaching the end of their rope and, asking some scary questions like, what's the point of getting up another day? Should I just end it? Who am I in this world anymore? Who cares? These are scary questions at any age, but when our men get into their 40s and 50s, the time when most of them are asking these questions, it's an extremely scary and lonely place. And that's where we find so many of our men.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of issues there. Like you've covered, in a short amount of time, a lot of issues.
Yeah.
And to also being Australian men and growing up in Australian culture, we probably more than other countries in the world have got this, she'll be right. True. We don't talk about it. We don't show weakness. So that's already been there underlying all of these issues. So
yes,
and men tend to isolate themselves when they go through these things because they don't want one of their mates checks up and they go, oh, look, I'm all right. Yeah, I'm fine.
Yes.
And they deal with it. I've got to be tough and I've got to deal with it myself. So that's always been in our Australian culture. Yeah. And that's something that, I see there's people trying to break through that and get men to talk to men. But, I have seen a lot of stuff where guys still say, well, I'm still not going to say anything because it's all right to say that. But then, down the track, the stigma and the social stuff that comes with it, I'd rather not say it. So there's a lot of issues there. So the thing is, and this is what I saw when I was watching your content that I liked about your content, is you identify all these, but you're actually looking for solutions. You're a solution-orientated person. So you're looking at how men in this state can re-empower themselves, can start looking at what they need internally to build up a purposeful life again. Yep, life's changed. You got knocked down a bit, you get back up, and there's ways that you can build yourself back up. So, one of the things that's also happening, that I'm seeing happening in Australia now, is rites of passages for younger men to learn these tools so that they don't get to 50 and go, I don't really know. I was just sort of winging it through life and didn't work. That they're actually learning these tools to build core values and to build inner strength and self-esteem within themselves, say from 15 to 25, so that they're prepared for life. And there's there's a few of these. There's some people leading these, which is great. Have you had contact with people that are doing this sort of stuff?
Not so much specifically to do with the rites of passage stuff, but I do agree with you on that front. It's something that typically in our Western culture, we haven't done well because we haven't known it and understood it. And then, as we said, if you combine that with the epidemic of fatherlessness, we have this horrible cocktail of absence of role modeling. And I say to people all the time that, guys may not have their biological father around because he's passed away or he was absent or he was incapable or all manner of things. Some of that role modeling and prototyping and the passage into manhood doesn't always have to come exclusively from the biological father. There can be father figures. And this is why I'm always trying to advocate to men to do everything in their power, gather their resources to get through the fiery trial they're in, because without question, one of the things that will come their way on the other side of their trial, if they stick it out and get through it, is another man who needs them there so that they can get through theirs. Yeah. Now, when you're in a dark spot, and I know what it's like to get to a really dark, really low place mentally. I know what it's like to get to a point of breaking and feeling like the light of hope down the pathway is beginning to dwindle. And you get in that spot and it's difficult to lift your eyes up and think, well, I don't know if I can get through to dinner time tonight, let alone think about that future. But this is why we need brotherhood, where we bring men into our circle, especially those who feel like they don't have a toolkit for talking and opening up because of that lack of role modeling and that lack of fathering in their life. We need to bring men into that environment and let them go at their own pace and tempo to slowly add to their toolkit these skills around how to become self-aware, how to understand the nature of their challenge internally, then how to wrap language around it and do it courageously and safely with other men who are not going to dismiss them, mock them, diminish them, not know what to say to them. If we can break those two big issues of silence and isolation, we would help a lot more men with this idea of prototyping and role modeling. And the thing about it is, and I said this on an interview recently, this is not very popular amongst the feminist circles and certain other circles, but I could care less. I'm not interested whether it's popular or not. I know it to be factual and truth, and that is manhood can only be bestowed by manhood. You can't bestow masculinity with femininity. And the converse is true. See, I have an 18-year-old daughter. I've got an 11-year-old son. I have no capacity within my design to bestow femininity on my daughter. But she does need my masculinity as her father to present that side of healthy relationship. But my son, he won't be getting his masculinity from his mum. He'll be getting other values and traits from her, but he'll be getting masculinity from me because manhood is bestowed by manhood. So if that bears out as true, which I'm going to go to the grave believing and knowing that it is, and no one will convince me otherwise. I'm not even listening to people who try to convince me otherwise on that front. But if that bears out as true, and you parlay that into fatherlessness, silence, isolation, a lack of tools and skills to open up and connect, and society becoming more and more fragmented, any wonder our men are struggling because they are missing out on the opportunities to actually acquire the resources that will help them get through. And it's amazing to me how quickly a guy can have his trajectory changed in the context of brotherhood. I've seen it hundreds, if not thousands of times in my own vocational history, where guys who would have told you and sworn blind, I'm just about at the end, but then you get them in the right context and suddenly their eyes start to lift a bit because they realize I'm not alone. I can get strength from these guys around me. I've found some guys who've walked a mile in the same shoes as me, and I'm starting to gather resources and skills and build a toolkit that will serve me and then what I believe the ultimate joy in life is when the crushing experience that you've been through turns into the rich brand of oil that you get to serve up to others, and take them by the hand and bring them through. And we need more of it.
Yeah, we do need more of it. One of the things I noticed with, I had 3 sons growing up in sport and everything. I just noticed that guys our age, there didn't seem to be a lot of role models. It seemed people was that busy caught in the material world that they just couldn't. Oh, I haven't got time. I can't do that. I've got this. And I actually felt sorry for the generations coming through going, there's just not really anyone standing up and filling that position. And maybe it's the first time. And there could be, like you said, there could be reasons for that. There could be social reasons, social design, like you said, the rise of, second, third wave, feminist movements, all that sort of stuff, which, like you said, we're not here to debate that. We're just here to say we're calling it as we see it. Yep. And also another thing is, myself growing up, I had to model, a lot of the masculine traits around guys that I were around because my father was out working, he was absent, you know what I mean? Like that generation, just, a lot of the guys weren't around. But there was some good guys that a handful of them that were solid in that space. And they actually, and like you said, you model off those guys the positive traits. So, I suppose my question to you is, how do we start getting people to step up into those positions now, to create groups? If you've been through something, to create groups and get guys to come in and open up and be a part of that group. What are your ideas on that? How do you think you can grow that as a community?
It's a great question. It's a really important question. First thing I do is resonate with your point that there are specific and unique challenges that we observe because of unique generations and demographics and how they were raised. And, I'm right smack bang in the middle of Gen X. I was raised by a baby boomer, and that combo has not played out well for a lot of people when it comes to fatherhood and role modeling and all the rest of it because of the various traits that go on. And then you've got specific circumstantial stuff, chief of which in my mind is family history. And so we do see a lot of compounding repetition. And what I mean is, it's no surprise when you observe a family tree and a family line and the patterns are there. There's no big surprise when alcoholism or other addictions or violence and out of control anger and emotional unavailability or passive standing back, whatever the particular trait is, it runs as a pattern through families for a reason. And the reason is that the fruit looks like the root. In other words, as much as we don't like it, you can't escape DNA and genetics and prototyping unless you acknowledge it. And here's the powerful thing, Graham, and I'm talking to men about this all the time. And that is, if we want to do something about this generational compounding of what's going on in our men, somebody in that family line has to make the courageous choice of valor as a man and say, I may not have gotten what I needed in my past. My dad may have been absent or not available, or I never met him, or whatever the struggle may have been. Somebody in that crowd has got to go, but do you know what? As a man, I'm making the powerful choice because I'm an autonomous human with agency. I'm powerful. I'm not a victim. Yep. Even if I've been through victimizing circumstances, my identity is not victim. My identity is powerful despite my circumstances. And because of that, I choose to be the circuit breaker in my family tree. So I'll give you a simple example. This is not, earth-shattering by any means, but it's the uniqueness of my story. As I said, I grew up in the home of 2 baby boomers. They were not taught by their parents how to be emotionally available or to express love and affection. And so their tool bag was virtually empty on that front. And so I made it into manhood without hearing the words, I love you, verbalized. Yeah. Now, I know there will be people who will hear me tell this story some people from the feminist crowd, some people from the cold, hard denial crowd, maybe a handful of alpha bros who will go, oh, poor Andrew, let's cry him a river. That is just denial of the inherent needs we all have as humans. But here's what I did about it. I didn't sit down and cry a river. I made a positive choice to say, there is no way in the world I'm passing that lack of communication onto my own children.
Yep.
And so my wife and I talked about that, and we made the commitment because she had the same experience. And we said, we will be the circuit breakers in our family tree on this front. So our two kids hear, I love you, I'm proud of you, etc., and related terms constantly. And what it does is it creates a safety around them and a security around them to shape their identity and help them to know they can go out into a scary world and take on the challenges. And so this opportunity to be a circuit breaker is one of the most powerful things that we can do. And even on the nuance of your question where you said, how do we get guys joining groups and this and that and the other, even that is a choose to be a circuit breaker moment, because we need men who will say, do you know what? I have got my own challenges. I'm going through my own struggles, but I'm not going to let that stop me pouring out something to others. So, sometimes people wrongly assume that just because someone appears in front of a camera or they've got a social media platform or they've got some kind of influence, they must have everything sorted. Their life's sweet. I could bore people with the challenges I've got going on in my life right now. I've got plenty of them. And some of them have been really, really difficult to get through. However, I know that part of my way through is to help others as well. And so the answer I really believe is more men who recognize there is a power within to be that circuit breaker. And once you choose it, there is this almost miraculous momentum that starts to kick into gear on the inside. And it changes the identity of a man when he surges with that.
Yeah, and making it part of your purpose moving forward. I'm going to make
100%.
I'm going to make an impact to make a difference.
100%.
I just wanted to ask you, 5 traits. I saw one of your social media things, and 5 traits. What was it? 5 traits in a good man. Give us just straight off the bat 5 traits that you see in a good man.
Okay.
That a man that's done the work and that is purpose driven. What are 5 good traits?
5 good traits off the top of my head. First one, integrity. He does what he says.
Yep.
I'm big on this. Comes down to tiny things. Sometimes guys will say things like, hey, I'll give you a call tomorrow. Tomorrow comes, the call never arrives. That's an integrity issue. Get organized. Use your diary, use your task list, get organized, because when the other person heard it, they believed you meant it. So when you don't come through, if it's a mistake, and we all lose sight of our diary from time to time, shoot a text. Hey, so sorry, I let that slip. I will definitely call you tomorrow, I promise.
Yep.
Don't let it slip the second time. That's integrity. Because if your actions don't back your words, who are you? How does anyone trust you, right? So integrity is a big one. Another one that I would identify, because it's such a huge need in our world right now, is resilience. You could call it grit. You could call it determination. I like to use a bogan phrase, the mongrel muscle. The ability to be exposed to tough circumstances and determine on the inside, I will get through this. I've done a lot of coaching, as I said before, a lot of mentoring over the last 25 plus years. And I've actually trained many, many people who are now highly proficient in their careers, that they shouldn't fear tough contexts. And in fact, sometimes they should actually create them for themselves. And I urge people, do it in the physical training situation.
Yeah.
Set yourself a physical exercise challenge. Take on a run that you've never done before. Take on a competitive event you've never done before, so that you can grow the internal muscles that you can then transfer to life's other tough situations and build that resilience. So that would be another one. A third one would be ability to take criticism. If you can't take criticism, then you're going to really struggle to be developed and to grow. Now, the hard one with this is when we have men who are uninitiated, like we talked about before, unfathered, haven't been brought through into manhood. It's difficult for those men to deal with criticism because in the absence of good fathering and role modeling, criticism is perceived as rejection. and then it taps into insecurity and all kinds of things. But the ability to listen to feedback and say, you could do better here, you could change this, that's a big deal. How many is that? That's three.
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 You can do 4 or 5. I saw one of your posts the other day, and I really liked it. And it was a very proactive thing like this. Guys can aspire to these and build themselves, up to these. So I just thought I'll get you to share them with us.
Yeah, probably one more I would give, and I'd attach a couple of thoughts around it, because the first word seems too vague, but the word is loyalty. And what I mean by that is the debt of loyalty in relationships. And what that means is, as we get older and we go further through life, unfortunately, we discover that kindness and generosity are severely lacking in today's world. So when you experience it, make a mental note that you'll never forget and say to yourself, I choose to be in that person's debt for the rest of my days.
Yeah.
What kind of debt? The debt of return, reciprocal kindness and generosity. And I've tried to live that way. And I actually have lists of names so that I won't forget, because I try to live my life by a code of being generous, trying to pay for things for other people, and to make sacrifices that hurt me a bit but help others, and to live by that code. And when it comes back, I want to be the kind of man who says, well, if you show me loyalty and you show me kindness, I choose the joy of being in debt to you on that trait for the rest of my life, because I want to live that way. I don't want to have these short-term, surfacey, superficial relationships that change every 2 to 3 minutes. I actually want to be a man that can carry some relationships through all the phases of my life. And a big key to that is loyalty. And so I've got some relationships in my life now where men and women and other families have been there for me and stood by me. And some of them live in different countries right now, but I will never forget. I've chosen to be in a debt of gratitude and loyalty to them, to the extent that literally, if they ever need me or their children need me for anything, I'll drop everything and be there in a heartbeat.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because that is fading out in today's society, and
it really is.
If you meet someone that's got that as their core values and is solid, it's amazing. It just lifts your faith up in human nature. You just go, wow,
100%.
Someone. So yeah, that's a really good one. All right, Andrew, I'm not sure. You probably got other appointments you got to go to. I think we've sort of gone for nearly an hour now. I could talk to you for hours, but I've just put on the I've just put your YouTube channel up there. I want any viewers that see this to go and check out Andrew's YouTube channel. Some great stuff. And I think the handle is your social media handle. Is it at Andrew Gray Man Show? So that'll get you on TikTok and all that sort of stuff.
That handle is my TikTok account. Yeah. And then on YouTube, you can just search The Man Show with Andrew Gray.
Yeah. And I like straight away, I started watching your stuff and I like it because, like I said, it's got a solution. You're solution orientated. You're bringing up issues that are real, but then you're looking at how we can solve these and how an individual man can build himself back up to where he needs to be. And
Absolutely.
then, like you said, help empower other men to do the same thing. So love it. I recommend everyone that sees this podcast to go out and to watch Andrew's stuff, because it is, I believe, crucial that we start turning the corner with a lot of men's issues at the moment before the stats, become out of control, which 100%. They already are. But, per capita in the world with our population, we're already right up there with most of the Western countries. So, look, really appreciate it. I'll give you you stand up on the rooftop. Is there any final thing you'd like to say? Anything that, maybe you're super passionate about that you'd like to encourage guys out there to do? We've talked about brotherhoods and that. Is there anything you'd like to just as a parting note to leave with the audience?
Yeah, for sure. Look, probably the thing I would sign off with, for want of a better phrase, is to urge men everywhere, all ages and stages of life, don't apologize for your masculinity. In fact, if you'll permit me, the guys who are watching this, can I speak to you even stronger and say, stop apologizing for your masculinity. You're allowing yourself to be pushed into a corner that's part of the problem.
Mm.
Embrace your masculinity. The world needs it. Your community needs it. Your family needs it. And when I use the word masculinity, I like to use this phrase, Graham, original masculinity. I'm on a mission for as long as I've got breath in my lungs to do away with lazy, unintelligent, hybrid, mutated phrases like toxic masculinity. You cannot add a lazy adjective to an already conclusive, defined word. Masculinity is self-evident and existential in itself, and it means to protect, to provide, to empower. And so original masculinity is good for everyone. It's good for women, it's good for children, it's good for community, it's good for the world. And the truth of the matter is, if men don't embrace their masculinity, or they stop embracing it because there's pressure out there yelling against them, we go into a further tailspin across the whole globe where chaos and anarchy reign in ways we haven't even seen the like of which for probably a century or two. So to all the men watching, please, I know there's people out to get you and silence you. And that's why you need that man on the inside to rise up. If you need to hear it, I'm in that category. I will not be backing away from my masculinity for anybody. I won't be legislated out of it. I won't be told that it's useless and not needed anymore. That is a nonsense ideology. So men, embrace it. It's needed and the world needs it.
Yeah, well said. And I agree. I agree with you. Instead of, this toxic masculinity, healthy masculinity. That's what,
Totally.
That's the place to come from. So, no, great. I really appreciate you coming on, Andrew.
Pleasure.
Love your stuff. I will continue directing people to your platforms, and you're doing a great job. And the Australia and the world needs more men out there making some noise and basically getting the word out there. So,
absolutely.
Thank you very much. And all right, guys, you've heard it from Andrew Gray. So go and check out the Man Show, his YouTube channel, and his social media stuff. And it's it. It's time to become a better man and to do the work on yourself. So, all right, good stuff. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Andrew.
Cheers, Graham. Appreciate it.
We'll talk later.